There we go. Hello and good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Once again, if you're in Hawaii, this is TGIK. Thank goodness it's Kubernetes. And I'm Bryan Liles, and I guess I didn't offend enough people last week because they decided to bring me back for another episode. Spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about the same thing I talked about last time because I felt that an hour and a half just did not give it justice. So, before we get started, let's actually see who's in the chat. All right, let me pull this over here. So, let's see what we have here. We have Limati and Waleed and Rodolfo and Martin and myself, hi Brian, and Christian, and let's see, Dan and Steve, Maz, wow, and Vivian, hi from Munich, Yadin, and Waleed, and Bogdan, wow, there's so many people here. Someone from Olav from Copenhagen. Alex is not here. Oh, sorry, Alex. Pedro and Nupun. Wow. So many people on here. So we'll do like we do all the time. And let's get started with the news. Actually, let me find the news. I am one of those people. I have two screens. They're both 32 to 34 inches wide. And I can never find anything. So, here we go. So, the news. Let's actually have a look at that. Let me fire up my screen here so you all can see what I'm seeing. All right. So, the big news is, the big news here is Kubernetes 1.19 Alpha 2 is out. There's more updates. Actually, let me click on this link. I have not clicked on this link yet. Let's see what it says. It's just a change log. Oh, wow. There's lots of things in there. I do know that there was a webinar earlier today where they were going over some of the newer features. I don't know if they were focusing on 118 or 119. Hopefully 119. So whoever did that will give way more justice than I am. But the one item in here is, let's see if I can find it. Oh, no, it was a 118 fish issue. It was something about a feature that I've been looking for is that whenever you launch a workload and you have pods and it's slow, Kubernetes gets a little bent out of shape if things don't come up in time. And in 118, they actually added something to make that easier. So let's look what else is in the news. Ooh, this is a big one. Kind 0.8 has been released. Let's see, what are the new features? Oh, the default Docker network for nodes is now Kind instead of the default Docker bridge. Wow, it looks like this has really progressed over since the last release. And I've been using Kind since, wow, for a very long time now. And it's just great to see how Kind is evolving and the team is still putting in great work on it. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, wow, it's changing in real time. Nice. So Helm is a graduated CNCF project. Shout out to all the core devs on Helm and all the people who have put in all the work over the past few years to make it so that Helm can get to the graduated status. It's not easy to get there. I actually do a little bit of work with the CNCF and do know that there's actually quite a bit of things that need to happen for this to happen. So shout out to that team. The list changed to say what I already said. Another item here is kubectx, big update. It's written in Go. Well, that's kind of interesting. I actually do use kubectx. And for those of you who don't know, what kubectx is, actually I'll go to the home page. kubectx allows you to change your context and your namespace from the command line for people who work in multiple contexts, whether they want to work in with multiple users at once, or they want to work in multiple clusters, kubectx is actually one of my favorite tools. If I go to my shell right now, and this piece right here, this Minikube, this is all controlled. Well, it's pulled out of here, but I can definitely, well, this cluster's not up, but I can definitely run kubectx and kubeNS to get around. I'll do a little bit more of that when I get into today's topic. So shout out to Amit. Actually, big shout out to Amit. This guy does so much amazing stuff, whether it be coming from writing interesting things around the crew project, or you know what? He's Turkish. I'm gonna do some Turkish content so people can actually get content in the language they speak in. Yeah, that's a pretty big shout out to Amit. I'm a big fan. All right, the next item on this list is domesticating Kubernetes for the home server. Oh my, let's see what this is. So Vladimir Akopyan has written this article on running Kubernetes on bare metal in 150 minutes. Wow. I actually, if you all are doing this, I have definitely given up on this whole pursuit and either run it in VMs, but never on bare metal. So, but shout out for Vladimir for actually creating and documenting his efforts. These kind of blog posts are very important to our community because a year from now, someone's going to want to solve a big problem, and they don't want to actually be burdened with trying to figure this all out. So hopefully this blog post will be useful to somebody in the future. Next item here is investigating Kubernetes performance with BPF. Wow. So over in Ken Volk Labs, they've written an article about investigating Kubernetes performance issues with BPF. And let me tell you how I read a blog post. If it's technical, I go past all the words until I see code. All right, so we're launching something in Docker. All right, I'm interested. Oh, an error, or not even an error, a stack trace. I'm interested, and then I scroll all the way to the bottom, and then I read it backwards. I don't know if that works for everyone, but that's definitely how I read these. So I am going to add this article to my list, and I use Notion, and things that I want to read, I just put in here, and then I don't have to leave my browser. And whenever I go review Notion tomorrow morning, it'll be there for me. Next item is Kubernetes and Rust. So what is this about? So I know that Rust is becoming way more popular. The stability is getting there, and people like the type safety and the checking, so they don't have anything like no pointer exceptions. But it changes the way that you think about code. But I really like what Rust brings to the table. So what is going on in here? So like I said before, the way that I read, I'm looking for code. I didn't see any code. Oh, I wish I saw code in here. But I do know, just looking at this last line, Microsoft is definitely putting a lot of muscle into doing Kubernetes work with Rust and WASM. So I'm interested in seeing what comes out of these efforts. I know my friend Brian Kettleson, who runs GopherCon, is really into Rust right now. So I'm sure they have some pretty cool things that they're working on right now. Oh my gosh, I thought I could get away without talking about this one. So earlier, so about a week ago, last weekend, someone came and they said, "Whoa, look at this neat idea. We can make our Kubernetes objects show up in a Google spreadsheet. And even better, we can actually control our Kubernetes objects from a Google spreadsheet." I did set this up, but I realized when I set it up, I went crazy and I started doing all these things, and it distracted me from thinking about today. So I put it away. But I want to raise the gauntlet. This is cool. I want to see someone do something interesting with this. Google Spreadsheets is pretty powerful. So let's see what people can do with this. And if you do something neat, let me know, and I'll give you a little shout out. Let's see. And the last item on our list, let me read this first, is a shout out to Chris Nova and Sysdig for twitch.tv/setns. Chris is doing a weekly session there. Not doing it right now, but Chris is actually a pretty good friend of mine, and I will always support what she does. So give this a watch or go back and see some of the previous episodes. All right. So let's get started on the day. So I have to sit up for this one. So last time, what we did is we deployed an app. And that's kind of a little bit different than what TGIK has been doing for the last couple of years. But what I wanted to do was actually have this whole long run-up about all the things that have to move to or be in place to actually have app deploys. And of course, plenty of people have done it, but there's still a huge gap from the number of people who understand it to the number of people who actually just copied something off the internet. And what I wanted to do is fill that gap with some words and lots of YAML to show exactly what you can do here. So let's go to my screen. All right, no, we're already on the screen. So let's go to my, I'll move this over here. Let's go to a terminal. And let's see. First thing I want to do is I want to litter this thing with like Kubernetes stuff and then like how Bryan works stuff. So before I was pointing out with the kubectl and the kubectx is how I actually change my context and my namespace, my default namespace all the time. So in my path, I have this is set up for if I was going to run kubectl, and I did kubectl git. What would happen is I would go to my Minikube server and it would be in the default namespace. Nothing's going to happen here because I have poor power in my neighborhood and my power went out. And here's a pro tip. If you buy UPS, plug your computer and the monitor into the side that says protected instead of the side that says surge. Because I learned this the other day. What happens if it's on the surge side, when the power goes out, your computer will turn off. And that happened to me like 3 times in a row. But now I'm good. But that's not going to work because I didn't restart Minikube after the last time I rebooted. So yeah, so it hasn't even been a whole day. So what we want to do here though is I'm going to change my directory. So I'm going to go to development and I'm going to go to demos and what's in there? I'm going to go to TGIK 116. And you'll notice that my path or my prompt has changed. It shows my directory. It shows that I am using Go 1.14.2. I should take that out. It's not really important. But it also shows that my Kubernetes cluster has changed. And it's changed to a cluster called do-nyc3-tgik116. And the namespace is recap. And I wanted to actually move from Minikube or Kind to a real cluster just to show that, you know, this is stuff that actually does work out in the real world, of course. But I chose DigitalOcean. And why did I choose DigitalOcean? One, I was one of the first engineers at DigitalOcean. A lot of people don't know that. Two, I was the first remote engineer at DigitalOcean. Three, I wrote software at DigitalOcean that's still being used and still people are still making it better to this day. So you know what? As my appreciation for all the good experiences I had there, hey, you know, a little shout out, and I'll use DigitalOcean for this. So if I get git node, I think this is like a 3-node cluster running 116.6. Before we were running Minikube and 1.18, but nothing I'm talking about actually doesn't really matter. So first thing I want to do here is do a little recap because, you know, we're in this whole COVID-19 era and every week feels like a year. I barely remember what I talked about last week. And so I actually had to write it down. So what do? We actually deployed this website I made a website, and what it was called is github.com/Bryan Liles/website. Yay, website. What does website do? It's like cowsay, but it's on the web. So it's like a little cow, and it has a message. And oh, Bogdan, just let me go back. And this 1.14 2 is my Go version. Like I said before, that's supposed to be a gopher, I guess. And this is the Go version. Like I said, it's not very useful. Um, but we're doing WebSay, and I first started by building Docker files so we can build an image for it and pushing it off to Docker Hub. And then I showed how we can use CNAB, or not CNAB, CNB, Cloud Native Build Packs, to actually automate the building so we didn't have to write Docker files. And then we finished up with Tecton and Tecton Task to actually automate that piece. Now, I want to start there, but what I want to do now is I want to automate the whole thing. I want to automate the building from whenever I check something into GitHub. And then I also want to make sure, how do I actually automate deploying this website as well? So that's what we're going to do today. And there's a couple things that I skipped over last week that I think I should have explained more. And so I'll start with those. The first thing is I use this tool, TKN. It's a CLI for Tecton. And last week I was just sitting here typing, and I was typing like Tecton TR. The TR stands for task run. They're just shortcuts. So this week you'll see me do Tecton task run maybe, and then some pipeline run maybe. And just to let you know that that's just what this is. But there's also something else inside of Tecton that I did not show you last week either. So first thing I'll do is I'll load up Octant, and let's see, we'll go to another namespace. We'll go to the Tecton Pipelines namespace because it's installed in there. And then we'll go down to the pods for Tecton Dashboard. And I just wanted to show you that Tecton, the folks over there, they actually wrote this dashboard. And you can see like all the things that I've been doing because I wanted to make sure this demo worked out well. So I had to try it a few different times. So the neat part about this is now you can see it from the command line, or you can see it from the website. It's actually it's kind of neat, to tell you the truth. So if I click on this, I can actually go through these, and if I click on one of these, I can see the build log. Pretty neat. And the cool part about this is that these logs are actually stored as container logs. So the way that this is coming out is that it's actually hitting the API and saying, give me the logs for this container. And then it's doing all the nice color stuff here. So this information is here. It's just not easy to see. And this tool does make it easier. So back to what I was doing last week. So we're in this recap namespace, and the first thing I want to do is let's actually run a task. See if this thing still works. So we'll go test Tecton task start. Actually, this is the command line I want to use. So this command line here, let me make this just a little bit bigger. There we go. So this command line is Tecton start task start one called build packs v3. That's from this the cloud native build packs. Use a service account called buildbot, and then have an input and say the source is this website get, which I'll tell you what that was again, and an output is an image, and then we'll show the log. So the source website, that's a description of a GitHub repository. In this case, it's github.com/Bryan/website. And the image is just an image. I think this one is a Docker Hub image under BryanL/website::Tecton. I think so. So we'll go ahead and we'll build this, and we'll see what happens. Neat part is that what's happening right now, it's actually kind of neat. You can watch it in Octant. If we go to pods and we change our namespace to recap, what's going on right now is, let me go to the next page because I think that's where they are. It's running. It's right here. So we can see that it's 1/3 of the way through because it's 3 of the 9 we think 3 to the 9 already. But we can take all the guessing out if we go to task runs. And okay, there's nothing here. Let's see, web save. Guess there's nothing here, but it's actually still running. So we'll just look at it in the command line. So what it does is it uses the cloud native build packs and it figures out that you have a Go app. It actually goes and it builds it. And now what it's doing is it's actually pushing it off to Docker Hub. And like I said before, Bryan Liles /website Tecton. So I go to Docker Hub just to make sure this works. If I go there, let me go over here. And if I go there and I see Tecton, all right, so that task does work. But we want to do more than that. What we really want to do is I really want to go here to my website and let's say that I had a PR or like we're going to do today. I just edited I edited it right here. I'll edit the README a few times. And I want that to automatically build my image. And I don't want to do anything on the cluster anymore after I have it set up. I just want to actually do this piece and something is talking to, actually no, so we'll do this, we'll set up a webhook and then what we'll do is we'll take that webhook and we'll forward it to my Kubernetes cluster and then the software will run and then hopefully the task gets run and then I build my image. But I also want to do something else. Before, you noticed that when we generated the Bryan Liles /website, I always tagged it with :Tecton. What I would like it to do is be tagged with the git SHA-1 of whatever head is in the master branch. And to say that even an easier way, I want to actually, so this latest commit right here, I want it to be tagged with this latest commit. So this A61 or C item. And like we have right here. So how do we do that? So let me go and we're going to do a lot of Google searching today. So we'll go Tecton pipeline. And hopefully on their website, because I actually am not sure about this. Nope, there's no fancy images here on their website. So I'll just explain it to you. So Tecton has quite a few number of resources. Last week we used task and task run and pipeline resource. This week we're going to use a few more. And this first one that we're going to use is called pipelines. And this what the pipeline does is it takes a set of tasks and it runs them. So it's a way to group tasks. And what it can do is it manages the resources and it allows you to do that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to create a pipeline using our existing task. So actually, let's see how we can do that. So let's go back to the cluster and K&S. Like I said, I love this tool. And I'll tell you what, this is like something like a little sidebar here. I knew that you could do up and down. I did not know that you could use your mouse on here until like right before I was doing this. So we're going to change to our live namespace and let's see what's in this thing. So git task, git, all right, we'll get rid of that task in a second. Git, so that we don't have a build pack v3 one there yet. So we're gonna need to install one. I'll show how to do that in a second. And let's see what else we can do here. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to create our pipeline, and then we're going to test our pipeline out locally just to make sure that it works. And it's going to be pretty close to what the task was, but let's get this all running. So the first thing I need to do is figure out where I did with the task. Let's see. Hopefully I set all this up. Nope, not there. Yes, there. We're going to install this build packs v3 and into our cluster. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I have the right secrets and all set up. So okay, get secrets. Oh yeah, we got all sorts of secrets in here. Great. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this build packs v3 right into the cluster. So let's go we'll apply-eff this build packs v3, and I'm not going to check it because I already know what's in there. These are just steps that are these are the steps that are required to build with cloud native build packs. And it's a lot. I think there's like 6 or 7 steps in here. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but just know that we tested this and we actually just tested it before. We do know it works. So now if I get task, I should have my build packs v3. So now what we want to do is wrap that with a build pipeline. And the way that we'll do that is, let's see. I'm debating whether I'm going to type it in or I'm going to cut and paste from a website. I think I'll just cut and paste from a website. So we'll go up here and we'll make a new directory. We'll call it move line to live, move line to live, and we'll go to live. Oh, there we go. So now we're in our live directory, and the first thing we want to do is create this, we'll just call it build pipeline.yaml. And what I'll do is I type this in because I am an engineer, but most of my time when I deal with Kubernetes is just deal with wrangling YAML. And like Python, it kind of messes with me sometimes and I mess up the indenting. So I typed them all in just to make sure that I had them. So let me explain to you how this works. So this is a pipeline resource. It's a tecton.dev/v1beta1. And in this case, it's called build pipeline. And what it does is if we go down to the middle, what it does is it has one task. And then what it does is it starts from the beginning and it calls a task, and then a task runs the steps. And then we got to get the information into it. And like I was telling you last time, that Tecton works with this concept of resources. So you can have a Git resource or an image resource, and we're actually using both of those here. So what we're going to do is we're going to supply a Git resource and supply an image resource to this. And then the pipeline will tell the task what the image resource and the source resources are, and it'll run. So this is just a wrapper around what we did before. So if I go like this, and then I do apply-eff build pipeline, it's in my cluster. Let's actually, you'll see me go to this Tecton dashboard quite a bit today. And we go to pipelines, and live, we have this thing called build pipeline. And neat part about this tool is that I don't have to type all the time. What I can actually do is I can use this web GUI to create this stuff here. So what it's saying is that there's no pipeline resources of type Git in the live namespace. Yeah, that is right. And no pipeline resources found of type image in the live namespace. So we need to come up with those too. So let me actually come up and let me read the comments real quick before I go. So this is one step with Co. Yes, I know. All you ex-Googlers and your love of Co. I will actually talk about Co towards the end. That is a neat tool for building images from Go projects. Does Tecton have persistent build histories? Yes, it can, because in Tecton, what you can do is you can actually mount an image along with the steps, and you can actually pass that volume or mount a volume along with the steps, and you can pass that volume around. And inside of there, what you can do is you can actually keep cache data inside of there, so you could use it to speed up your build. I can't do that with cloud native build packs, but I wanted to keep it simple, so I did not. So what we're doing right now is I'm trying to remember where my my resources are. So if I go up a directory, Tecton resources. So apply-eff up 000 Tecton resources. So now we created this Git source, and then we created an image as well. So whenever I reload this and I do create, Oh, this is what I was scared of. Um, Let me try this one more time. This tool has been a little finicky for me today. Oh, it worked this time. So now whenever I can select my pipeline resource and it's website get and the output one is this website image, I like this because notice I didn't configure it to do this things and it actually knew that the get would have been up front and then the website image would have been on the tail end. I think that's kind of a neat thing here. So we'll use this build service account to build it, and it's running. And so let's click on it and wait for it to start. So a neat thing about this is that it's way better than the command line if you don't know what you're doing. The command line is definitely faster, but if you don't know what you're doing and you want to see this thing all in context, this tool puts it all in context. And by the end of this, we'll actually touch almost all of these types. So it's a lot to keep in your head. So we can watch it run. So it's building now with CMB. It's running go install. And as soon as it runs go install, what it'll do is it'll do this export and it'll upload it to GitHub. And just like what I'm trying to do is build, instead of jumping all the way to the end, I'm trying to build it up step by step by step so you can actually see someone go through it. Because one thing that I notice, and this is, I spend a lot of time doing this, is if I go to Tecton pipelines or really a lot of other software out there, oh wow, there's a lot of docs here. And usually they'll give you an example, but no one answers so I want to do this. And it's like, why would I want to use a workspace? How are labels helpful here? And so what I'm trying to do is give you a little context that goes around. So this thing is all done. It uploaded it to Bryan Liles/website. And if we go look at this image, if we look at this Tecton image, it should say just a couple of seconds ago. Yes. So we are there. So now we've created this pipeline. And I want to talk about something else. It's kind of a little bit of a sidebar, but it's very important for the rest of this. This demo uses a cluster on the internet. This is in NYC3 out in somewhere in Jersey. And the issue here is that now we're going to have communications going across the internet. I could actually go the easy route and say, you know what, we'll just do plain text and TLS is not needed, but I wanted to do it the right way. So what I did is I decided that I would use Cert Manager. And if I'm going to use Cert Manager, I'm going to need an ingress controller. So I set that all up beforehand. And the reason why I set it up beforehand is something interesting that I did not realize until just today. So what I'm going to do is change my namespace in Octant to go to my live, because we're live right now. And I'm going to go and look at ingresses. So I created this ingress right here, and it's called live. And the reason, so I had this idea when I thought about this the other day, is I said I would use this domain. I would use my personal domain, bryanl.dev, and then I put a TGI K116 in front of that. And then I said what I would do is then I would just dynamically generate TLS certs with Let's Encrypt. Because whenever I first started using Let's Encrypt many years ago, you would generate a cert, 10 seconds later that thing would show up. Couple years ago, a minute or so, it would show up. This week, it was between 5 minutes if I did it early in the morning, or if I did it in the middle of the day, it might be 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And I realized that would not make for a good demo. So I pared back and I thought of another idea. So what I'm going to do is everything that I'm going to demo today is going to use this live.tgik.bryanl.dev. And I'm just going to use paths. That way I don't have to generate any more certs. So let's actually, so what else do we need to do now? So we have our pipeline running, and what we need to do is figure out a way to go from GitHub to our pipelines. Our friends at the Tecton project have actually thought about that. And what we have is this project called Tecton Triggers. Tecton Triggers, not Tiggers. The wonderful thing about Tecton Triggers is triggers are wonderful things. I guess y'all have no kids. But what this is about is it's a way to trigger pipelines. And this is why we went with the pipeline first. So what this allows us to do is have something external, and it can send a request, and then the Tecton triggers can answer that request, and then they can call the pipeline, and the pipeline can do what it needs to do. So how does this work? Wow. Well, let me explain it to you. It seems like once again, it seems very overwhelming, but it's actually pretty simple. There are 3 new terms that we're going to talk about. One is called an event listener. And what an event listener does is, surprise, surprise, it listens for events. And then there's this thing called a trigger binding. And what a trigger binding does is it takes the payload out of the event listener and it binds it to local variables or params that we can use. And then there's this idea called a trigger template. And we'll go through all of those even more whenever we see them. There's this trigger template that actually instantiates your pipeline so that it can run. So it goes event listener, bind with the trigger binding, and then call the trigger template. And we are going to be so fed up with YAML by the time we're done with this. We're going to go into the weekend pretty happy. So let's get started. So what I need to do now is I need to create some event listeners, some trigger templates, and some trigger bindings. And they go from a little bit of YAML to a little bit more YAML to a lot of YAML. So like I said, I love to prepare for these things. I'm actually just going to copy one. No, we don't want to do that one. So we'll get... we'll go get our automate deploy. What do we have in here? Trigger deploy. Cool, that's what we want. We'll get this trigger deploy, and I'll launch this up, and I will walk through it to show you what we have. So like I said, we have an event listener, we have a trigger binding, and we have a trigger template. And let's go through these real quick and see what they do. So what happens here is the event listener has a service account name, and it needs a service account because it has to create what's defined in this template at the bottom. So we'll need a service account that actually has the ability to do that. And then we have these trigger bindings that actually go through and look at our payload. And then from our payload, what they do is they take this, they take the items out of the binding, out of the payload. Like, so we're going to get a git revision, and we're going to get a git repository URL, and we're going to pass these to the template. So let's see how this works. Oh, wow. And then we have this trigger template. And what the trigger template does is it takes the parameters that we had before, and then what we do is we have this thing called a resource template, 1 or more, or actually 0 or more, and we're going to create a pipeline run. So before, when we were in the Tecton dashboard and we were at pipelines, and I was at build pipeline, I created create. We have this create. Our Tecton, our trigger template is actually just going to do that for us, so we don't have to do it by hand anymore. So let's go back to them. And so let's look at this. So what it does is it maps the params. So we're going to get a git revision, a URL, and a namespace. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to create this pipeline run. We're going to give it a name of deploy-run. And you're going to see a lot of this $, semicolon, or semicircle. What do you call those? Parentheses. So $, left paren, UID, right paren. What happens is whenever these are evaluated, Tecton triggers knows how to evaluate those to something. So in this case, it'll be like a 6-digit alphanumeric string, or in this case, it's params that we had before, or in this one is another param that we had before. So it's just useful. So I'm going to change this just a little bit. We'll just put live there because I think we're in our live namespace. And I'll go ahead and I will create this thing. Apply-Eff. Apply-Eff. And hopefully it all creates. Whew. So now, one thing that we're going to get, and we'll go back to Octant so it'll be easier to see, is that whenever this loads, let me see if I can find it here. And are we in the right namespace? Okay, get pod. What I'm waiting for is there's going to be a pod and a service created that I can actually forward my ingress to. So I'm waiting for that to show up. So while that decides to show up, let's go see what else there is. What else there is going on here. So if we go to event listeners and we have our deploy listener and we go to YAML. Let's see. It just created it actually. There it goes. So it created this L deploy listener. Now we can go look at it. So now if what namespace did it create it in? So let me just go with running here. Okay, get pod. Okay, get task. Okay, get event listeners. All right, so we have a deploy listener, and I think it actually created in another namespace. So let me go back and delete -f trigger deploy, and let's go look at this all again. Let's make sure that I have this all in the same namespace. So what we're going to do here is we have, just going over this for myself, I have the service account name, and then I have a trigger binding. I'm going to delete this line. And then we have our trigger template. So we should have a deploy trigger template, and the names are matched up here. And we're going to create this pipeline run namespace, and that namespace would be, all right, looks right now. So K apply-F trigger deploy YAML, K get pod, K-n recap, KNS recap, K get pod. All right, so KNS live, K get pod. All right, we're still waiting for these to actually show up. No, and so Bogdan, no, it does not show up. I don't think it shows up in the Tecton namespace. What I need to do is I'm going to go to the Tecton namespace, and I'm going to see if it's spitting out errors. So we go Tecton pipelines, and what I'll do here is I'll go to the Tecton triggers controller, and let's see what these logs say. Oh gosh. There we go. So it is 4:40 something local time. I don't see any errors. Let me get rid of these timestamps and only show this one so I can make it wider. It does not look like I have any errors here. I'm just eyeballing. I'm looking at levels and I don't see any errors. So when in doubt, this is what I do in Kubernetes. I'll go here to my triggers controller and I'll just delete it rather than typing in that long thing in the command line. And if we're any bit lucky, it'll be recreated. And it has been recreated. So since that has now been recreated, maybe it got stuck. I don't know. I'll go back to my live namespace and we'll look at our pods. And oh, here it comes. Oh, look at that. L deploy listener status 00. Let's see what's going on there. Do I have too many pods running on my cluster? That could be it. Oh, so here it is. This is what happened. There needs to be a service account called Tecton Triggers Admin. I did not create the service account. So let's go ahead and create that service account. This is what happens when you do things in front of people. So I will go up to here and figure out what that looks like. So what I'll do is I'll go KN recap get service account Tecton triggers -admin, and I'll do YAML, see what that looks like. All right, not much going on there, so I'll just go K service account create Tecton triggers -admin. No, create. So let's create the service account from the command line. Now that those pods actually should start, but they won't have the right permissions. So now what I want to do is go K-N recap get role bindings. No, role bindings. And we'll get this one. So we'll go K-N recap get role bindings, and then we'll spit that thing out as YAML, see what it looks like. Yeah. And we'll spit it out to rbac.yaml, and we'll nvim rbac.yaml, and we'll just get rid of all the stuff that doesn't need to be here. Now, if I go apply-eff rbac, and I go now, when I go back to when I go back here, what I'll do is I'll go look at my my replica sets, and I'll just delete this one. I think it's a little confused. So now what should happen is I should get a new replica set because, oh, there it is. My list. All right, so my deployment's there. And now I should have an L deployed listener. Yes, we're now here. So yes, I'm debugging this live. What you're seeing is that, and this is actually a problem that a lot of people run into with Kubernetes. I still run into it, and I use Kubernetes all the time, is that the graph of objects that you need to have to make something work, sometimes complex and it's opaque. So a good example would be you're missing a service, or you're missing a service account, or a service account doesn't have a role. What's the canonical way that you can actually figure that out? I don't know. So let's see what's going on now. It says that it's initialized. Let's see what the logs say. So now what it's saying is that, oh gosh. Cannot list resources config maps in API group. Oh, wow. RBAC roles. So did I spell the thing wrong? So K get SA. Tecton triggers admin. Oh, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to delete my thing and restart. K delete -f trigger deploy. K apply-f trigger deploy. So I can't say your name. Is it email work? So I wish tools made this dependency graph easier to see in the UI. Yes, I agree. And so this is actually why I created Octant, to tell you the truth. One of the things that I use in Octant, and I just need to spend some time making this piece better, is that what does an object create and what does it refer to? This is not a complete list. But Octane actually will show me. So sometimes whenever I'm looking around here, oh, does my pod actually have all this stuff working, and what's broken right now? So like Octane's telling me right this second that no replicas exist. And this replica set says expected one, but zero exist. So let's actually, so now I can click on this and I can go here and we can go back to the things. Oh, it says it's happy. So if I go to pods, why is this pod not happy? Um, this pod is not happy. Events aren't going to tell me much. It's saying Tecton, it's saying role, Tecton triggers admin not found. Oh. So let's do this again. Oh, did y'all let me do something that I shouldn't have done? Yeah. So let's try one more troubleshooting thing before I put easy mode on and skip past here. So another thing that I put in the Octane just recently, because I was actually looking for how to figure this out. So if you have a service account and we have Tecton triggers admin, now it's getting interesting. What's basically saying here is it's saying that there's an issue between Octane is erroring, but it's saying that there's an issue between the role and the service. So what I'm going to do now is go look at my role bindings. Oh, I know what the problem is. We're referring to a role that doesn't exist. That is it. So Octane should have been able to tell me that, but did not code that in. But that is what the issue is. So we can fix that too. So what we'll do here is we'll go k-n recap get role. There we go. And YAML into rback.yaml, and then we'll edit our rback.yaml. And we'll get rid of this. All right, we'll put this here. We'll get rid of all this and all this and all this and all this and all this. So what the role allows you to do is it allows us to create it. It allows us to look at event listeners, and then it allows us to create pipeline runs and pipeline resources, which is what we need to actually get this thing started. And then it allows us to look at config maps and secrets. So now if I do this, it'll work. Nope. I have a typo in my, oh gosh, there we go. So now, whew, there's so much going on here. So if I get pod, now if I look at my pods, we're gonna go k delete the f trigger deploy one more time, and then we'll create it. So the $1 million question is, did I plan this, or did it just mess up? I don't know, and I'm not gonna tell you, but I think we got past it, so it's not important. So now if I go look at my pods, we'll see that my L deploy listener is now created. Yay! That was a lot of work. I wish, really, this is the kind of tool that I would like to build. When things don't work, I just want to say, hey, cluster, what's up? And I want the cluster to say, hey, Bryan, I see you're feeling bad. You're missing a role. You should fix that. And then pat me on the head and send me on the way. So that was a lot of work. So now what we have here is we have our listener listening. If I go back and I go look at my my services, we have an L deploy listener listening. But now what we need to do is we need to point to it with our ingress. And let me fix that and make that work. So remember before I was talking about ingresses and making those things work. So if I go k get ingress, I do have my live one. So k get ingress live -o YAML. That's a lot. what's actually going on there. I don't know, but if I look inside of Octant, if I go look at my ingress, it's a little bit easier to see in Octant, but I can see that I already have one for this live and this website deploy. We'll go over that later. So what I'll do is I'll just edit it from the command line. K edit. And one thing you probably notice is that every time I launch NeoVim, it compresses all this stuff. And this is actually like a pro tip. You never know how big the YAML file that you are going to see is going to be. So what I do is I actually automatically fold the whole entire file because I don't want to see, if I'm not ready for that, I don't want to see it. So in this case, I only want to see what's going on in here. So we'll go into packins, and what we'll do is we'll create another one and we'll call it backend, and we'll call it service name. Oh gosh, what was that? Sugar. What was that called? The service name was called L-deploy listener. We'll go over one more. And the service port is 8080. And we look at that, we go to path, and we'll call this one. We'll just call it deploy one. No, can't call it deploy one because it's not deploy one. We'll call it build one. So now inside of my ingress, so if I go back to Octant now and I go look at this, if I go look at the ingress, all right, where is my ingress? There it is. If I go look at this ingress and we look at live, there's going to be 2 rows in here, and we're going to have /build1. Whenever you hit build 1, we'll go to this L-deploy listener, and whenever you get to this, when you go to website.deploy, it goes there. So we're almost there. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a GitHub webhook. Now, there are 2 ways we can do this. We can go to github.com/websay/ no, we already have one of those open. So we can go settings, and we can grab websay, and what I can do is actually I will delete. I wonder what happens if I delete this. Yeah, we'll just delete it. Let's see if it comes back. All right, maybe it won't come back. We can add it here. The problem is that what are you going to add? But what we need to add is we need to have a webhook that goes to my live.whatever/build1, and it needs to have the payload in there. And that's actually that's a lot. What we should be using computers to reduce the cognitive load that we have. So what I did is I wrote this thing. And let me see if I can find it. All right, create GitHub webhook. Look at that. So what we'll do here is we'll go websay, and we'll change this thing to be /build1, and we'll go here to live. I don't like doing things manually that we can do with the tool. So I just wrote this tool real quick that actually will go out to GitHub. And if I go reload this page, no, not this one. Look, we have our new webhook. So the neat part about this is that there's this green check, which means that it was actually able to talk to something. And so that means that we have wired it all the way up, and we are able to talk. So let's see if we can actually make it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my website, and I'm not going to change any code. I don't want to break anything, or even on accident. So we changed it. We add another exclamation point. We're super happy now. We're going to go to our dashboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to see if there's any pipeline runs running. And I don't see any. So let's dive in and figure out what happened here. So what we have, the way that we diagnose this is I go to the L deployed listener and I go look at its logs. And it's going to tell me real quick what's going on here. So now what it's saying is that, well, actually, it's saying that it might have worked. So let's clear that. So it ran. And what it's saying is no task runs found for this pipeline yet. Well, that's interesting because we ran it from the command line earlier. So what does that mean? And that means we have to go back to the command line. So get pipeline run. So where is this one? So it's this one, and we can go describe pipeline run this, and it'll give me a slightly more helpful error here. Error retrieving pipeline from pipeline run. Error when listing pipelines. It says pipelines.dev.tecton.com deploy-pipeline not found. Get pipeline. Do you see what the problem is here? The problem is I think it ran the wrong thing. So what I want to do here is look at my trigger deploy again. Oh, wow. So I'm just going to get rid of this entirely. And I'm going to go back up to my other directory and copy over the right one this time. And if I look at, all right, copy, no, not trigger deploy. We want this one, trigger here. So now, oh wow. Okay. All right. So now what we have is, I think actually the right one. No one pointed out in the chat that I was using the wrong one the whole entire time. But how would you have known? So apply-Eff trigger.yaml. Let's actually make sure that it's calling the right one. So Steve says, how do I do that? Really, I'm just using vim commands. So I use lowercase z, uppercase r. It just opens the whole file. So I want to go up to my template and see, all right, got service count name and build pipeline. Get pipeline, build pipeline. All right, so apply-Eff trigger. So what I did before, and let me explain to you because I did this kind of fast. I copied over the wrong pre-generated template. So it worked. The problem is that it didn't work in the right way because it was trying to do a deploy rather than a build. So that's all that was about. So now what I can do here is we'll go back to settings. We'll just resend the last webhook because then I don't have to do a whole bunch of changes. So we'll go here and we'll redeliver it. Please work. No. The problem is edit get service edit ingress to L build listener. There we go. Now, all right, now we have everything all set up. So now let's try this one more time. Redeliver, yes. Now it should be green. Okay, so what it's saying here now, oh, we got a 403. That means that there is some interesting auth issues here. So let's go diagnose what that auth issue is. So if we go into our trigger deploy, what I bet is happening here is under the event listener. Nope, there's nothing here. What is happening here All right. Let's try this one more time. Actually, let's try it with an edit this time. So we'll just edit, and we'll add another exclamation point to show you how much I really want this to work. So now, if I go to my Tecton dashboard, we have my build pipeline, and if we go back into our settings and we look at our webhooks, oh, it says I'm unhappy. And why is it unhappy? It says I got a 403. It says event listener, build listener, event ID. Well, that's very interesting. All right, so I'm going to skip past this because there's something else I wanted to talk about. But I promise you, I have a solution for this, a solution that actually makes this a lot easier. So let me show you something else here and another idea that we actually have. So we have build. There is something weird with the build, and I think I know what it is, but I don't want to dig into it because I actually have a better solution that will supersede that. We also want to do a deploy. So what we want to do is we want to deploy our website. And if you remember from last week, it was a deployment of service and an ingress, or it was an HTTP proxy last week. We're going to do the same thing again this week, but we want to automate that deploy. So I wanted to bring up this other topic now. This is kind of like the draw, this whole idea of GitOps and what GitOps is. So interesting enough, if I go and I just type GitOps, and let's see, what is GitOps? So I've been to this one before. I think Weaveworks invented the term GitOps, but this CloudBees thing here is more interesting to me because it says GitOps is a paradigm or a set of practices that empowers developers to perform tasks which typically fall under the purview of IT operations. GitOps requires us to describe and observe systems with declarative specifications which eventually form the basis of continuous everything. So, what exactly is GitOps again? I don't know. But I'm going to ask a question. Is GitOps a methodology, or is it a thing that we do? Is it a way that we think, or is it something that we're trying to get done? I'm going to leave these kinds of words to others. And what I'm going to say is that GitOps is, we store our configurations in our source code repository so we can version them like our software. And that's it. I'm sure people will probably, there'll be some debate and somebody will challenge me, but practically that's what it is. And it's called GitOps because we're using a lot of Git these days. So we're going to store our configurations into Git. So, but first, before we can do that, we actually need to have a configuration that we can store into Git. So let's create one. So the first thing we need to do is, let's make a directory. I'm going to use customize. I don't use customize all the time. I use a few different things, but I decided to use customize because actually it's pretty good for this example. So customize is interesting. It has this customization file, and you can have resources, and you can apply transformations to the resources. And then it can spit out YAML that you can apply with kube control or something else. So today we're just going to stick in kube control land. So first thing we want to do is initialize our customize. So I have like, let's see, customize version. No, version. I have 3 something on my machine. Oh, so interesting. I'm going to, I'm being challenged by Cornelia Davis saying that Git and storing config in Git is just a small part of GitOps. Hi, Cornelia. It's nice seeing you. And I know I just challenged, Cornelia works at Weaveworks, the inventors of GitOps. And I am definitely being snarky and tongue-in-cheek here. I'm not dismissing anybody's work. I actually do think there's a lot more to it. But I thought it was funny. So, but really not trying to offend anybody here. But we're going to do a tiny little piece of GitOps today. And we're going to store our configurations in Git. And then we're going to set them up to deploy automatically. So Hopefully I did not offend. And if I did, send an email to actually just tweet at me angrily on Twitter. I will apologize profusely there. So first thing we want to do, we have customize 3.5.4. So we're going to actually do customize create. And what does it do? It creates a file called customization. And it just gives you an API and an API version and a kind. Smart thing here that I want to encourage everyone to do, if you create a configuration file and you put stuff in it, version it, because you're going to change your mind or someone's going to change something, and what you're going to have is a configuration that you don't know when it was created. So version your configuration. We're going to put some stuff in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do k create deployment. And I already have these commands all typed out. So this is how you create a deployment from the command line. So we're going to create a deployment called websay. Its image is going to be called Bryan Liles/websay. We're going to do dry run so it doesn't create in a cluster. And then we're going to pipe that to YAML. And we're going to put this in a file called deployment.yaml. We can also do the same thing with the service. So we're going to create a service, a cluster IP service called websay. And it's going to have TCP. It's going to map port 1323 in the container to port 80 on the service, and dry run, pipe it to YAML, pipe it to the service.yaml file. Let's see, do we need any other files here? Nah, we won't use any other files. So now what we want to do is we want to go to our, let's see, we'll go to our customization file. And what we'll do is we'll add resources, and we'll put our deployment.yaml, and we'll use our service.yaml. And what's going to happen here is customize is going to do all the smart things, and it's going to build our configuration. So it combined all those YAML files, and it did that. You're thinking, yeah, Brian, that's amazing. I could use cat to do this. Yes, you could have. But I'm going to show you something neat about customize now. So first thing we're going to do with our customized configuration is we're going to get out of here. We're not going to use the editor anymore. What we're going to do now is use the command line. So this is a very interesting thing that I can do with customize. I can set an image right from the command line. And the first thing we need to do is actually go get an image from Docker Hub. And we'll take this one. Hello. Yep, go to tags and we'll just grab this one. We'll grab this. We'll grab, oh jeebus. All right, we'll pull it from there. So I'm gonna hit enter, and then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go like this. Oh, so actually that's interesting. I'm reading through the comments here. So it says Bryan Liles/website. I'm just making sure that's the right image. So the comment was, it says, if you haven't used it before use customize, edit, fix. It's a hidden gem. So we'll get our customization that we just put in there, and we'll do customize, edit, fix, and it didn't say that it did anything. What did it do? It didn't do anything. Or maybe it moved. Oh, it probably rewrote my file. So that's an interesting thing about nesting YAML. I don't think there's a standard, and depending on the editor I'm in, sometimes it will, if I go down to the next level, it'll indent over again. Sometimes it won't. And I'm not here to fight editors, so I usually go with it because it's easier. But no, that is pretty cool though. So what did we just do? We set this image. So now when I do a customized build, notice that I didn't, it actually replaced the image right in my deployment, and it knows how to do that. So if I did a k apply dash k instead of an f, so play k apply, so kube control apply dash k for customize, and in this directory what it's going to do is it's going to say that you can't change that. Is that just a deployment? That's because I already have one deployed and I deployed it from a different way. So, okay, delete deployment website. All right, now let's try it. See if this works. Yes. So now we have this thing running in our cluster. If I wanted to see it, I could actually go back to Octane and use a feature that I was using before, but I'll use it again. So we'll just go, and so I don't have to configure, I won't have to configure an ingress or anything like that. Oh, this doesn't do target ports. All right, never mind. We're not going to see this one. Just trust me, it's running. Actually, it says it's running. Yes, it started the container. So you don't have to trust me, it says it's running. So what we want to do is we want to have automated deploys. So how can we have automated deploys? So first thing I want to do is this is my configuration. There's a lot more I can do with customize. There's a lot more transformers I could run. I can actually do some labeling and some namespace stuff. I'm not going to do any of that for time. So I'm gonna do it the best way. I'm gonna do it live. So I'm just gonna go get init, and then I'm going to see what I have here. I'm going to get add. See you later, lead. I'm going to add everything. I'm going to get check in, and I'm going to check it in YOLO. YOLO, yeah. Very on key for Bryan and typos. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hub create, and I'm going to use this hub command. If you're not familiar with the hub command, I use it for a lot of GitHub things for creating issues and a lot of other things, but it creates repositories. So I created this repository, and then I can do git push.u origin master to create this branch remote. And by the time I get there, it's here. So what I could do here is I can run through this all again, and I could actually create a pipeline and then I can create triggers, and I can create that webhook, and I can make it all work. But really, you know what? This is a lot of typing, and I just don't want to type anymore. So I'm going to do something different. So now I'm just thinking here how I can do this. This morning, I was thinking about this problem, and I'm actually going to, I'll come back in a couple months and actually do a whole TGIK on this. Let me know if you would like to see a TGIK on writing operators for Kubernetes. Either in the chat or on Twitter or on LinkedIn, or if you know me on Facebook, or any of the other back channels that we may hang in together. Just let me know. I sat and thought about this problem where I was like, all right, so to get a deploy going, or to get a build going, what do I need? I need a CNAP configuration. That's like 6 steps. I need to have all these pieces. I need to know the repository. I need to know all this. And I said, that's a lot. And to get a deploy going, well, what else do I need to know? Well, that's a lot. And, me, expert, not really, I struggle with this. So I was thinking, well, why don't we use Kubernetes for what it's good for to actually solve this problem? And here's what Kubernetes is good for. It's a platform for making platforms. So today, this is not production quality. This is nothing else. But I want to show you how easy it is to use an operator to do all these things that I did. And the benefit is when we use the operators, I don't have to mess up my YAMLs like I was doing before, because if we use a language like Go or use a language like Rust, guess what I get? Static type checking. And let me show you how this works. So like I said, I was thinking about this problem this morning, and I was tired of YAMLs. So what I'm looking for is, oh, lordy. I use, Bryan. I'm looking for a window in my other window, so give me a second so I can find it. There it is. I use the IntelliJ stuff, the whole IntelliJ stack. I like it so much, I paid, I don't know how much money I pay a year, like $150 a year to use all their products. And you're saying, why would you do that, Brian? Because it makes me way more than 150. I probably get 10 to 20 to some other X more benefit out of this. And I'm going to show you why I use this today. So I wrote a operator that does two things. It does deploys and it builds images. And I'm going to run through it real quick and how it was all built. And then I'm going to show you it run. And then we're like an hour and a half. And I'm going to talk about what the future could hold. And then I'm going to go into my Happy Friday mode. So let me show you this thing. And like I said, I literally wrote this morning. There's no test. So what I did is I created this idea that if we were going to do deploys, and we want to do deploys and we want to build. So I want to build an image and I want to deploy an image. And that's hard. And Tecton is great software, but the problem with Tecton is, like you would see, there's task runs, pipeline resources, pipeline runs, there's conditions. And if you introduce triggers, there's the extensions, and then there's the templates, and then there's the bindings, and then there's cluster level ones of some of these. There's like 15 types, and I'm like, oh, it's so hard. All I want to do is do a deploy. So really, let me show you this, and I'll make it bigger. There we go. I wanted to just have this. I wanted to have a CRD that allowed me to specify a service account name, specify a repo if it's public. If it's private, there's some other things that we can do with the service account name. And I wanted to run in this situation where I have an ingress rather than like an HTTP proxy from Contour or something like that. And I wanted to set it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to run this thing. I'm going to apply this thing to my cluster. And just to show you how lazy I am, I'm running this controller in local mode. So the controller is running on my computer and it is listening to the API in New Jersey and DY and DO NYC3. So if I do kapply-f and I will do config samples and image. Let me delete that. Delete that. Config samples and image .yaml because I want to see it from the beginning. All right. So now I've created this thing in my cluster. You see scrolling things are happening over here. Even if it's too tiny, don't worry about it. That's not important. But let me show you what this thing does. And then I'll tell you why I think this way. And this is why I love Kubernetes. I really love the idea of Kubernetes. I don't really love Kubernetes. So what I did here, so if I go to images, like literally look at this, look at this name. It's images.opx, and that's like operational experiments from my personal domain. I'll click on this thing called websay, and I'll go to the YAML. This is what we just saw. But I'll go to this resource viewer. And what we see over here is there's a lot of things going on. It's real tiny, and I might make it a little bigger. But what I want to show you is that it created quite a bit of stuff. And what it did is it did this. So if we go to websay, is this websay? No, yes, this is websay. And we go look at the webhooks. It created this webhook, and it says that it's failing right now. But I bet if I push it again, it'll work. If not, that means I just broke the ingress, and all this is for nothing. Oh, there we go. So created a webhook. It actually managed the webhook in the cluster at GitHub for you. And then what does it do? It creates the extension. It creates the extensions interface, and it creates the trigger binding, and it creates the trigger template. And it does all these things. And the neat part about that is that I can express myself in the language of someone who doesn't really care, as I have a service account name, I have a repo name, and that's it. So let me show you another piece of this too. So I didn't want to just do images. I also created this deploy, and look at that. It looks exactly the same. I think it might even use most of the same code. So what I'll do is I'll kapply-f. No, we'll change this repo like that. Well, so we'll now create this bad boy in cluster. Look, mom, no errors, no stack traces. But now, if I go to Octant once again, and I go look at, oh, there it is, deploys.opx, and I'll wait for that to load, and I will click on this one, and I'll click on this resource viewer. Still more things in there. The error we were having before is because we foobarred the ingress before. That's on me. So not a big deal. That's why it wasn't working before. But it created the deploy, and now we have this thing listening for deploys. So what do you mean, Brian? It's listening for deploys. Well, that's exactly what I mean. So if I go to here, we'll add a README, and Friday, live from the internet. And we pretend this is like some kind of PR, and that we actually went through this process that we could use to approve this PR, which is actually a good part about using GitOps stuff, like using that GitOps mentality with GitHub. Little sidebar here is that you can create changes to infrastructure in a pull request. And the neat part is then you can have your automated tooling. But if you need permissions from, let's say, a VP or somebody else who's in charge of infrastructure, guess what? They have one place, and we can actually use this to say that such and such pointy-haired boss actually clicked on approve for this, so we know that it's actually their fault and not our fault that it broke. So kind of cool. So if we go look, I just want to see, we'll go look at my Tecton, and this was my website deploy run. It runs in like 10 seconds. It's not very slow. So what it did is it ran my kube control. So if I go look in my cluster, get pod, what we'll see now is we have this website that's been running for, there it is. This website deploy run that's been running, and somewhere in my cluster, we have this thing. There it is. I actually don't know where it is. Get deployment website. All right. So, and if I do edit, I actually want to go fix this ingress issue. It's bothering me. So if we go figure out what's wrong in our ingress, so what it did, all right. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with our ingress. But the whole goal here is to take these complex tasks, get rid of the YAML that we don't need to see, create interfaces that we can see, and then manage the life cycle of these. So this is not a programming TGIK. I did see lots of +1s in here. So I think I'll come back in a little bit and actually do an operator. We'll just build an operator live. How about that? So we'll build an operator live, but just to show you, to get this in the cluster, there's actually a very interesting part that I like. Whenever you're doing complex things in YAML, and you need to, and there's just a lot of things there, being able to use the typed values so you can actually determine what it is, and you can see if it's required or not, or things like that. That's just so much nicer. Now, the weird part about this is that Go is super wordy, and I really do agree with people whenever they say it's super wordy. But that wordiness allows me to sleep at night. So I'll take a couple extra lines of typing if that's what it takes. So, how do we move forward from here? And so, why did I start thinking about it this way? This is what I think about this. I think that, as I keep on saying, that Kubernetes is a platform for platforms. We should not move our applications to Kubernetes. We should figure out how to run our applications on Kubernetes. I think too many people are just saying, we're going to lift this thing and we're going to put it over here. I do know that from people who thought they can lift their data centers and move them to the cloud, that didn't work. They had to change the way they thought. And with Kubernetes, you get a lot of benefits with changing the way that you think about approaching infrastructure. So as an ops team or as a dev team who's supporting things that run in Kubernetes, why are you understand that your things will ultimately create pods and services and ingresses and different types of volumes. But do you have to work at that level? I don't know. In a lot of cases, probably not. So what you should do is make it easier on yourself, and then you make it easier on everyone else. Is that you create higher level abstraction. So it is all YAML at the end of the day, and we can actually dive through. We're not hiding any of that YAML. But what we need to do is to say that for someone who wants to build an image on Kubernetes, they can use an automated service like Kpack from the CMB team that actually can automatically build images, or they can do it in this imperative way. Well, actually, it's an imperative declarative way. They can do that as well. But we want to meet people where they are rather than delivering on these crazy ideas that don't work with anything else. But we also don't want to bring out, we don't bring in so many low-level ideas that they don't really, it's too hard to actually figure out how to put them together. So there's the winning spot is in the middle. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. We need to figure that out. And hopefully what I was able to show you, and if anyone wants to see this code, just ping me. I'm not going to really publish it, but if you really want to see it, let me know. I'll make it available to you. What I wanted to show you is that there are lots of parts for building applications, even easy ones. Building an app is finding Docker files, or using something like Cloud Native Build Packs, or using something else. Because you know what, you can use Co from the Google project. Scott Nichols was on earlier, and I know Matt Moore from the Knative team, that they really have thought about building, how do we build things. So use use Cloud Native Build Packs, use Docker files, but think about how do we make it easier, more accessible. And then what we need to do is we need to understand how things work, and it means we have to dive in, but we need to automate what we understand. So if you're doing something and it's prone to breaking, hand that to the computer. Computers should do that kind of stuff. Humans, I fat fingered this whole entire thing. The next piece is that we need to understand parts of our domain. So there's a reason why I split up builds from deploy. They're very simple, and they map loosely to CI and CD. I didn't talk about testing or multiple environments or anything like that, but I could actually create another deploy, and I could create another deploy, and I could just yank this, and I could put this here, and I can go like this, and I can say call this one website deploy 2, and I can now apply that bad boy, and now guess what? I don't know what happened there. They were just missing a secret. Don't create big things, create small composable things, and then take those small composable things and create things that are slightly bigger. We have this idea that we jump from small to super large. And what happens is that we get this thing that looks very cool, but at the end of the day, you can't use it. So with that, I'm tired of talking, and it's hot in here under these lights. So happy Friday to you all. Actually, I would love your feedback on any of this through email. If you know my email, you can send me an email. Through Twitter. I do read DMs eventually. Through LinkedIn. I'm just kidding. I won't read those. But reach out to me and tell me what you want to hear about and what you're doing, because I'm curious. And with that, bye.